Snow White, Pixie Dust, Seven Dwarfs, Boys Who Never Grow Up, Magical Shoes, Princesses, Dancing Trees, Fairy Godmothers, Talking Toys, Prince Charming, and most importantly, a talking mouse. Walt Disney has created a legacy. He showed triumph through hard times and followed his dreams. Walt Disney has proven that with hard work, courage, and ambition, that any dream can come true. According to a biography put out by the Biography Channel, Walter Elias Disney, popularly known as Walt Disney, was born December 5, 1901 in Chicago, Illinois. His father Elias was a contractor, and his mother Flora was a teacher. Walt was one of the Disney's 5 children, 4 boys and 1 girl. The family later relocated to Missouri, where Walt spent most of his free time drawing and painting. He made extra money as a child, selling his artwork to the neighborhood. When Walt was 10 years old, his family moved to Kansas City. With his time in Kansas City, Walt fell in love with trains. He snagged a job as a teenager selling concession at the local train station. Walt Disney relocated back to Chicago for high school. He attended McKinley High School, where he began furthering his interest in cartooning. He was even a cartoonist for the local school paper. Walt attended high school during the day and took night classes at Chicago Art Institute. At the age of 16, he dropped out of high school. His plan was to join the army, but he was denied because he was underage. So instead, he joined the Red Cross and was sent to France during World War I to drive an ambulance. So now that I've informed you all about Walt Disney's early life, I will now tell you how he began his cartooning career. After returning from France, Walt Disney joined the rest of his family in Kansas City. He got a job drawing cartoons for the local newspaper. There he met another cartoonist by the name of U.B. Works, and they began making cartoons for the local television station. Then they began making cartoons that showed before the movies at the movie theaters in Kansas City, called Laugh-O-Grams. Laugh-O-Grams were a huge hit. The early cartoons became so popular that Walt Disney bought a studio and hired multiple employees to make new cartoons. Sadly, the company fell into debt, and Walt Disney had to declare bankruptcy. Walt Disney and his brother Roy took off to Hollywood with a sketchbook and $40 in their pockets. A distributor from New York invested in the company, allowing them to make cartoons. This was the takeoff of the Disney Brothers Studios. The company later hired a paint artist by the name of Lillian, who later became known as the Mrs. Walt Disney. The couple had 2 children, Sharon and Diane. A few years later, the company produced a short cartoon called Steamboat Willie, featuring the one and only Mickey Mouse. Steamboat Willie was a huge hit, leading to the creation of Mickey's famously known friends, Minnie, Goofy, Pluto, and Donald Duck. The company continued creating more cartoons. Next, the company produced Disney's Flowers and Trees Silly Symphonies, which became the first cartoon to win an Oscar. In 1937, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was the first full-length movie produced by Disney. Roy, his brother, and his wife discouraged him against this, but Walt continued with the project. Sadly, the movie caused the company to run out of money, but good thing, even though our country was in the midst of the Great Depression, the movie still managed to make $1.5 million and won a total of 8 Oscars. The company grew, producing movies we've all probably seen at some point in our lives. Cinderella, Dumbo, Peter Pan, Sleeping Beauty, and the list goes on. So after this, the company began producing live-action programs such as Zorro, Davy Crockett, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and the first movie being Mary Poppins. So now that I've given you the basics of Walt Disney's cartooning career, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Disneyland. According to DesigningDisney.com, the gates opened to the legendary Disneyland in 1955. The cost of the park was $7 million. Everyone was excited about the grand opening. 6,000 people were invited to attend the big day. ABC broadcasted the event live, which is a huge thing to do in this time, and titled it Dateline Disney. The broadcasted featured notable personalities, Art Linkletter, and our former U.S. President, Ronald Reagan. The highly anticipated day, however, did not go as planned. When the gates opened, trees were still being painted, Paint on the buildings were still wet, and the asphalt had not dried yet, so when many of the women would walk around the park, their heels would get stuck in the asphalt. Personally, I'd be a little upset if I went to Disney World and my shoes were stuck in the asphalt. The event became so popular due to counterfeit tickets that by the end of the day, over 28,000 people were at Disneyland. Many of the rides broke down during opening day, and due to the overcrowdedness and the scorching California temperatures, the park ran out of food and beverages. And to top all of this chaos off, the park had a gas leak and had to shut down and skip half of the opening day festivities. Many people predicted that the park would fail, but Walt did not give up. A few years after the official opening of Disneyland in California, Walt Disney began designing plans for another theme park to be built in Florida. Sadly, Walt never got to see the finished product. In 1966, Walt Disney died of lung cancer. His brother Roy, however, completed the plans of the park, and it opened in 1971 in Orlando, Florida, naming the park after the legend himself, Walt Disney World. Millions of people now visit Walt Disney World each year, giving it the nickname the happiest place on earth. Now you all have learned about the magic of Walt Disney. Walt Disney moved to California with a sketchbook in his pocket. With a sketchbook in his hand and $40 in his pocket, he made a name for himself, becoming one of the most innovative people ever. Go to a store and look around. Disney is everywhere, and all of this because a man with a dream and a talking mouse. According to Forbes magazine, as of May 2014, the Disney industry is worth $143 billion. Walt Disney once said, "All of your dreams can come true if you have the courage to pursue them." Walt spent his whole life exemplifying this quote. Like said in the famous Disney song, "Indeed, dreams really do come true." Thank you all and have a magical day.